How's everyone doing today? Show of hands if you were at the keynote earlier. So that's just about everyone. We have a bunch more stuff to share with you that's coming up. I'm Paul Rosania. I'm the head of core product at Slack. And what that means is I work on the team that works on the nuts and bolts of Slack, the parts that people use every day, like messages and channels. On the core team, we're focused on making Slack more powerful and easier to use for everyone on every team across all of their devices. I'm here today to give you a glimpse at the upcoming Slack roadmap. And I'll start by walking you through what we're working on the core product team. And then I'll hand it off to Ilan Frank, our head of enterprise product, Noah Weiss, our head of search learning and intelligence, and Benson, our head of platform, to walk you through a bit of what the teams are working on. At Slack, our mission informs everything about how we do what we do, how we work together, how we interact with customers, how we plan our roadmaps, and how we build our features. To accomplish this mission, the product team breaks into the 4 focus areas I mentioned a moment ago. We have a lot to share with you this session, and we're going to try to hold about 15 minutes at the end for questions, so please save them until then. So to begin, let's dive into core product. I'm going to cover 6 things that I'm particularly excited about, and what ties them together is a focus on making Slack more and more powerful for more types of people. And one of the best ways that we can do that is by enabling more people to use Slack in their native language. This morning, we announced a localized version of Slack for French, German, and Spanish speakers. Coming soon, we're going to continue to bring Slack to more global markets by localizing into Japanese. Japan is an incredibly important market for us. It's our largest non-English speaking market in terms of the number of customers, and it's a vibrant component of our developer community. We're very excited to bring a localized Slack experience to Japan, spanning the entire Slack product and administrative dashboard, and including local support offerings, a translated help center, and international billing. As we increase the number of people who can use Slack in their native language, we're also looking for ways to connect people and help them get work done. Earlier this year, we launched screen sharing, which enables you to quickly share what you're working on with other people while you're on a Slack call. This can be a super handy way to review a presentation or document that you're working on. But it's also frustrating sometimes when you're looking at something that someone's sharing with you and they've just moved on to the next thing, but you had feedback and you're asking them to scroll back up a little bit more, wait, too far, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. And so what we're going to do is, coming soon, we'll make it so that when you're on a call and you're presenting something, you can enable other participants to control your computer interactively, that they can zoom in on exactly what they're hoping to reference. We believe this will be a great way to collaborate with people on your team and to get work done, and also for people who are in IT to provide remote technical support. Speaking of making life simpler, we're going to make it easier to write longer multi-line messages and to enrich them with bold, italics, and bullets. You can do all of this today if you know to surround the things you want to call attention to with asterisks for bold, with underscores for italics, or to hold shift when you press enter in order to insert a new line. But if you're like me, every once in a while, you forget to hold shift and you send a half-finished note out to your team. So in the coming months, we're going to make it a lot easier to write messages in a natural way like you would with other tools by just highlighting the thing that you want to reference and either clicking a button or pressing a shortcut, just like you would with any other tool. While this is a simple change, we believe it'll make things much easier for people who are posting big announcements, or really just any time that you're writing a longer note to your team and you want to call attention to something in particular. So let's say you've written a big announcement or an important note for your team. You've gone through the effort of formatting it so that the important things stand out with bold or italics. You've bulleted the important points. How do you make sure that that message doesn't get lost in the river of messages flowing through the channel that you're posting into? This is a concern we've heard from some customers, and it's something we experience ourselves at Slack from time to time. So what we're going to do about it is we're going to make it so that administrators can limit who can post messages in certain channels. Now, this is a feature that's already available to our enterprise grid customers, but we recognize that this is something that can be a concern for companies of any size, so we're going to make it available soon to our standard and plus customers as well. Now, whether you're posting a big announcement or simply catching up with your team while you're on the go, Slack requires an internet connection to connect you with the people that you work with. We recognize that most people spend a good chunk of their time on office Wi-Fi, but ideas can happen anywhere, and we're not always connected when that happens. So over the coming months, we're continuing to improve our offline capabilities so that you can connect with the people that you work with, whether you're in the office on solid Wi-Fi, or whether you're catching up on the subway, or whether you're working from an airplane. I'm personally excited about this as someone who commutes to work via Muni every day, because I'm constantly trying to get a couple bars of data when we pull into a subway station before we pull out the other side and I lose my signal again. Lastly, no matter where you work, you're bound to work with people outside your company. Now, earlier today, we announced the beta release of shared channels, which enable you to connect with people at other organizations to collaborate using the same channels and DMs that you're already familiar with. Channels have turned out to be a simple and powerful way to get work done in the workplace, and I'm excited about the possibilities as people are able to connect with more and more organizations that they work with in order to get work done using tools that they're already familiar with. What we announced today is really just the beginning. Coming soon to the beta, you'll be able to create private shared channels. And if you're already one of the 2/3 of our customers who are using guest accounts, and you want to make sure that you bring that data with you when you migrate to shared channels, we're going to make it so that you can pick up the data from the guest account that you had and bring it into your Slack account so that you have access to it through search, and so that the account that you're using to connect with people at other companies has the same data that it had previously when you were in their team as a guest. Now, no matter what we build for the core product experience, we need to make sure that it works well for and provides real value to the largest of organizations. So on that note, I'd like to bring up Ilan Frank, our head of enterprise product, to talk a bit more about what's coming for Enterprise Grid.
Thanks. Thanks, Paul. All right. I apologize for my voice. It's the beginning of soccer season, and I have 3 kids now playing soccer. I have not adjusted yet to that. I'm also the only one of the 4 of us wearing a sport coat today, so you can guess what part of the product I work on. Enterprise. So we launched Enterprise Grid back in January. Enterprise Grid, pardon me, is us taking Slack, adding user, admin, and security functionality, and making that available to large organizations, from 1,000 to 500,000 employees. And within Enterprise Grid, one of the special features is the ability that you can have an unlimited number of workspaces. Each workspace you can think of as a collection of channels, members, apps, and administrative controls. This is very important because it provides for autonomy for groups such as a department, a functional group, or a project group. If you're still a little confused about what a workspace is, if you're using the free, standard, or plus versions of Slack today, think of that as one workspace. So now you have an unlimited number of those within Enterprise Grid. Now, you want to tie those together, so we have the ability to create channels that cross workspaces or across the entire organization. We also have a unified employee directory so that you can DM, you can find employees, your colleagues, and you can DM them instantly. And finally, we have advanced security controls in Enterprise Grid to make all the folks in IT very happy. And I'm going to take you through what we're building next. But before I do that, I just want to really thank all the customers. Many of you are here today that took this journey with us over the last 7 months. It's been quite an amazing 7 months, crazy, but amazing. And I really want to thank all of you for that. So let's get started. In Enterprise, we already have an e-discovery API that that already captures content creation. We want to take this a step further. So what we're doing is we're creating a log that captures all system and policy changes, invitations, guests joining channels, files being downloaded, login attempts, and many other events so that you can monitor what's happening inside Slack. This log is going to be exposed as a REST-based API, so you could integrate it into third-party monitoring tools, such as Splunk and Sumo Logic, or any of our CASB partners, such as Palo Alto Networks. Today in Enterprise, you can already install, approve, and restrict apps at the workspace level. And again, that's important to keep those workspaces and have them have autonomy. Now we're building an organizational app-level system so that you can set corporate governance, approve and restrict apps at the organizational level. The workspaces will still remain autonomous and will still be able to install apps, but now they inherit from rules that are set at the organizational level. As I mentioned, with Enterprise Grid, we have the idea of multiple workspaces and the concept of sharing channels amongst those. With channel administration, what we're building is a new mode of channel that is a default or mandatory channel. Imagine hundreds of thousands of employees all in one channel. Combined with the rich text editing that Paul mentioned earlier, these are going to be a great way to get the word out in large organizations. Of course, with that, we have to set advanced controls that we're building on who can archive channels, install apps, and post replies in these channels. Here at Slack, we have a class called Slack 101. And we use that class to teach our new employees about Slack, and at the same time to instill our values and our unique culture with those employees that are onboarded. For me, it was one of my favorite sessions coming onto Slack. And so we thought, why not take that and productize it? So what we're creating now are interactive onboarding guides for employees that you will be able to customize and use those guides to instill your unique values, your collaboration etiquette, and your culture. The concept of workspaces and having individual workspace for focused work has very strongly resonated with large enterprises. Still, there are many employees that work across multiple workspaces, and they want to see the content within all those workspaces instantly. So what we're doing is we're developing a unified workspace that allows you to see all your content instantly across the entire organization. Think of it as a Slack cockpit. Sorry, that was so 2000. Maybe we'll call it a Slack dashboard. No, never mind. It's going to be unified. It's going to be great. Don't worry. So now, finally, from our EMEA customers, we've heard loud and clear that they're looking for local data storage. I don't know why anyone would fear storing data in the US, but that's what they've told us. So I am happy to announce that we are working, along with our international efforts, on local data zones so that you can comply with your corporate and regional data privacy requirements. If you're using Enterprise Grid or any version of Slack, I'm sure you'll agree that there's a lot of information flowing through your Slack instance. And that's why we have a search learning and intelligence team that's focused on making Slack smarter the more you use it, and on making your company more productive. I'd like now to invite Noah Weiss, the head of that team, on stage to tell us what they're building.
Thanks, Ilan, and good morning, everyone. I'll confess, I do not have the same SaaS jokes that Ilan has up his sleeve, but I do have a lot of exciting search and machine learning-powered features to tell you about that we'll be launching over the next quarter. So let me kind of walk you through some of these. They're all about making Slack more predictive so that your company can be more productive. And we'll start with the first, which is all around helping you prioritize what you read when you open up Slack. So for those of you who do use Slack, and hopefully use it kind of wall-to-wall in a pretty intense way, you've seen a lot of the benefits of this transparency that you get from this channel paradigm that you heard April talk about. There's information flowing freely in a way that was never really possible before, and this collective knowledge that's amassing the more that you're using Slack. But candidly, there's a downside to that, which is that you can be really easily overwhelmed by how much there is to read in Slack. And we're tackling that problem head on. So one of the things that we'll be rolling out soon is this ability to have prioritized channels in your sidebar. And what that will do is actually use all of the ways that you engage with Slack. So the channels that you read most often, how you engage with them, the people that you reply to quickest, and reorder your sidebar when you want to, so it feels more like an inbox that helps you focus on what to read first instead of just a directory. And over time, we'll also be launching intelligent collapsible sections, so you can have just those high priority channels and most important people visible, and collapse everything else, letting you have a kind of more zen feel to your workday. On the search side of things, our vision here is very much to be able to answer even your hardest questions powered by that collective knowledge that's amassing in Slack. And what that means is that not just messages are potentially the answer. So what we're doing is actually rolling out a whole new set of ways to be able to see different types of answers, whether that's a key file, a ranked discussion from the archive, an important person who knows about a topic, a relevant channel, all in one place, all in one view. So you can see this all at once. And all these answers are personalized to you, again, based on how you use Slack. Beyond that kind of universal search view, one of the biggest feature requests that we get from users is that they understand that Slack has these powerful filters, but you have to learn a whole new advanced syntax to be able to use them. I think even for myself, when I work on the team, I probably know about half the filters. So I assume many of you, there's a lot more room to grow there. But instead of making you learn a whole new command line language, we actually just want to expose these as simple but expressive filters in the UI itself. So it'll feel more like shopping for flights or shopping for products and kind of services that you know and love, instead of having to learn something that feels like a command line. And over time, those filters will actually be suggestive as well. They'll take into account those people and channels that you care about. So when you can filter down to someone that you probably are already talking to every day, that's one click away instead of having to even type their name. So finally, on the search side, we want to make it feel even faster. For my days working at Google on search, we knew that every 10 milliseconds actually counts. You could see it experimentally when you reduce latency. And a lot of that is also about never actually having to get to search results in the first place. So we're going to be completely revamping how autocomplete works in Slack. Today, search will actually just look over your past queries to be able to suggest that to you. But in the future, we'll be merging in the people that you care about, the channels that you frequent, the files that you've posted and interacted with recently, and suggested searches, all in a autocomplete kind of search as you type interface. So Slack over time should feel more almost like Spotlight on your Mac. You know, one keyboard shortcut away, and you can access all the things that you care about in Slack instantly. It'll feel like that kind of front end that you can use throughout the day to navigate the product and to navigate all the information inside of it. So going back to that problem of information overload, we're not done tackling it yet. We're going to be working on building this discovery layer throughout Slack, the product, that can tie together a lot of the disparate pieces that you now have to kind of navigate between. So whether it's the beginning of the day or in a break between a couple hours of meetings, we want to build a new starting point for you to use Slack to be able to figure out what to focus on, to be able to catch up quickly and get situated. What that means, tangibly, is that you'll see things like the most important channels that you normally read but you're behind on, or recent DMs from people that you care about that you haven't responded to, or even things like reminders that are overdue, all in one place so you can get started with Slack and not have to worry about what you're missing out on. And over time, what you'll see is actually a pulse of what's happening across your company. So not just based on the channels that you're in, so you'll never miss an important discussion, no matter where it happens across your enterprise org. And of course, like the rest of these features, the more that you use Slack, the more you use these features, the more tailored it will get to your individual reading patterns, so it can be more predictive over time. So finally, in the spirit of Apple's announcements today, we've got one other thing, which is related but slightly different, in that there's an entirely new effort that we're starting up, and we'll talk more about it in the keynote tomorrow. But the idea here is that when we talk to senior executives, when we talk to CXOs who are already all bought in on Slack, the really big question that they have is, what can Slack tell me about how my organization is working? Everyone here who's at a company is making a huge investment in people, but there's a tremendous opaqueness to that investment. How are people collaborating? How is that flow of work actually happening? So what we're doing is building a new type of organizational telemetry powered by the data in Slack for companies from 500 to 500,000 that can reveal trends in how work is flowing, how experts are being discovered, how topics are kind of amassing, all with this kind of bird's eye view of what's happening across your Slack company. So this is one of the biggest asks that we get, and we're excited to tell you that this is something we're actively working on. We'll have more to tell you soon. So as I said, all these features are really focused on helping you get more done in Slack based on how much you're using and how much your team is amassing this knowledge. But there's other ways to get work done in Slack, and our platform is a really big part of that because it helps tie together all these third-party services that you use, many of whom are featured downstairs, and all the internal integrations that you build to kind of tie in that data that you only have access to within your company. So to tell you more about what's on deck for platform, I want to invite up Buster Benson, who heads up our platform product efforts.
Yeah. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Wow, there's a lot of people. Cool. So yeah, thank you for showing up here and listening to all the things that we're thinking about for the roadmap. I'm Buster Benson. I'm heading up the platform team, and I just want to tell you all about the platform things that we're thinking about in the coming quarters and years. To start, though, I just want to remind everyone that after I talk, all of us are going to come back on stage, and you're going to have about 15 minutes to ask us questions. So I'm hoping you can write down some hard questions, ask for specifics about things that you've heard. We're happy to be as transparent and candid with you as we can. But going back to what Noah was saying about how we're using computers and algorithms and magic to sort of make Slack smarter, and by extension make you smarter the more that you use it, the platform is a complementary power to that. What we do there, obviously, is connect you to all the other software and all the other processes that you use outside of Slack. And this is really important to us because it presents us as a neutral platform where everyone can thrive, where all software is equal. To back up a little bit, though, about 2 years ago, we launched this app directory. I don't know if any of you were there at the announcement for that about 2 years ago, but today we have over 1,000 apps in this directory, and each one of these apps has been reviewed and tested and ensured to make your working life simpler in some way. And now almost every paid team is using apps every week. And this is great because it really shows the promise of Slack being this way that it connects all of the different threads that you use. You're going to see big names in the app directory like Google and Salesforce and Dropbox and Jira and lots of other ones. But you're also going to see a thriving ecosystem of developers, many of you who might be here today, that are hundreds of thousands of developers that are actively hitting our APIs every week, some of them working within companies to build and connect internal tools and processes, sometimes sort of playing around with different new features, and others that are actually building an extension of their own product and trying to facilitate work with Slack customers like yourself as well. So there's lots of different ways you can integrate with the platform. So I'm going to dive into one of my favorite ones here, which is Dialogs. You might have noticed over the last year or so, we've been adding some more interactivity to messages. So this includes things like buttons and menus and the ability to show a link preview, even if that link is behind a login screen, because we now know that who you are in both places. This enables the context of external software to come into Slack and only present the small, miniature amount of context that you need to make a decision, to add your little note, to sort of take an action, categorize things, that kind of thing. And it helps you avoid having to click on a link, go log in, find your password, possibly refresh the page again to get back to what the link originally was. And this is like sort of the passing the ball of context back and forth between Slack and you and other products. And a lot of apps out there today are starting to do really interesting things with connecting these arbitrary workflows. And one thing that we've really noticed is that as these paths get made with these workflows is that you need to start being able to send a little bit more context with each pass. And so we're going to be launching this really soon, which is Dialogs, and its ability to, with any kind of action, click a button, hit a slash command, you'll be able to start to not only write a quick comment back, but maybe categorize a ticket, maybe add an assignee to that as well, and send that back to the app. So this is going to really open up the pathways for workflows to connect between apps. This is interesting to you. Salman, who is the PM on this project, I don't know if he's here right now, but tomorrow he's going to be doing a session in the integrate portion of across the street, and he's going to go into much more depth with this. All right, so there's a lot of software in the world. A lot of it is very custom. Some of it is built into legacy systems and complicated. And you can imagine that every company has a very good set of very necessary tools that they use. For example, things like GitHub Enterprise and Jira On-Prem and custom analytics monitoring tools, or even just things behind your intranet. And it's hard to sort of make the connection to these products because they're so custom. But they're necessary, and so we want to make it possible to do these things. So easy things should be easy to do in Slack. Hard things, really complicated, gnarly things should be possible. And I think we can even do better than that, and we're going to try to make it a pleasant experience to configure this kind of software within Slack, both to work within Slack, but also just to make the experience outside of Slack more pleasant as well. Was anyone here at the developer workshop a couple months ago? Like 10 people, cool. So there we announced, this was developer facing, but we announced a new foundational app and permission model for our platform. And we thought about this from the ground up with the future in mind. We're thinking about how to make this really the kind of platform that will carry us forward in the next 5 and 10 years. And you're going to, from your perspective, you're going to start seeing this in small ways over time. One of them is you're going to start seeing apps that have trial periods and it can be evaluated very nicely without granting all the permissions to them up front. So you get to see the value before you grant permissions. You're also going to see apps showing up in new places. You're going to see them showing up in the sidebar underneath the channels. You're going to see them showing up in the channels when they join and they leave. They're going to also let you know how to use them in the context that you use them. And so this is really a foundational element for us to think about the future. And ultimately, it's about making apps feel like a native part of Slack. So how many people are familiar with slash commands? All right, lots of people. How many of you have memorized the way to create a recurring reminder for yourself in a channel every second Tuesday? All right, like 10 people, cool. So I'm not one of the people that figures this out and knows how to do this. I usually try 5 or 6 times before I get my reminder correct. And I think we can do better than that. I think we should make it obvious when you join a channel or when you're using an app or when you're working with a message exactly how to use it. And you shouldn't have to memorize IDs and syntax and the order of words. So we're going to start by making it possible for an app to just ingest content, primitives from within Slack really easily, like messages. So say you want to send a message off to an app to turn it into a task for yourself, or you want to send a message off to a document to append it to that file for context later on. Or you just want to forward it to someone else in your team. All that stuff can be enhanced with apps, and we're going to start with very simple things, but you're going to start to see us placing these hooks into a lot of more places. For example, a global way to just trigger an action from anywhere within Slack, whether it's from a person or a channel or from a workspace itself. This is going to be sort of the launch pad after the interactive messages winds down, and we're going to start doing this more. Okay. And finally, I want, because we sort of mentioned that there's a lot of text flying around. Paul mentioned that we're going to add new ways to add message formatting to your own messages when you're writing them. But we also want apps to be able to write and create richer formatting options within Slack. So has anyone ever wanted to see like a list or a table or a chart, just like throwing it out there, in Slack where it actually makes sense, and not having to do crazy hacks like pre-formatted text or screenshots of things that are flying in. So we're going to add a few things like lists, tables. We're also going to add some primitives like maybe calendars and tasks should just feel native to Slack and make it both flexible so that you can, as a developer and as a customer, you can see the right kind of stuff in the flow of a conversation, and also make it consistent so that works really well on mobile and desktop as well. Cool. So that's a lot of stuff. Overall, I think the one takeaway from the platform section is that you should feel like Slack is a neutral platform. We really want to weave together conversations, processes, people, tools, all that into something that just ultimately gets out of the way so you can get work done. And that's sort of the driving mission. If you've seen all the roadmaps here, you'll know that we are all building lots of stuff, but ultimately it's to make you, make it feel like it's a more seamless environment to work. Cool. So that's all I have, and I think that wraps up all of the pillars of the product roadmap. I'm going to invite people back on stage for, I think we've got about 10 minutes of questions. So I hope you have thought of some, and if you don't, we'll start asking ourselves questions. Let's see. Cool. Are there mics going around somewhere? If you have a question, raise your hand. All right.
There's one over there.
It can be for anything. Okay.
Slack related.
Anyone? Where?
Maybe the mic's not working.
That was.
No.
Or you could scream them out and we'll repeat them. Right here. Let's just.
Hello?
Oh,
Is Markdown going away?
Mark.
Our goal with rich formatting is not actually to make it harder for people who are used to just typing things out. It's to make it easier for people who aren't going to memorize that type of thing. So we'll always have ways to make it easy for you to format a message just by typing. So, no.
What you guys are doing is amazing. One question is, do you see some kind of standardization happening in that space so that developers can build experiences for Slack, but also other type of messaging products?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
Want to repeat the question?
Yeah. Oh, the question is sort of, there's a lot of potential to build on the platform, and are we thinking about ways to make it possible to build on multiple platforms at the same time? We have a Slack fund that definitely encourages developers to build interesting things into Slack, but we also encourage them to build a business and build into as many platforms as makes sense. We don't care how many other platforms you work with. What we really care about is make sure that you really focus on the experience and at least one of them to make it a really valuable product. Sometimes it's better to do one first and then sort of translate that to other places, but we're wholly in support of people experimenting with all the platforms.
And in terms of the things that we build for our core experience, we're trying to be really cognizant of making sure that we're opening up APIs, ideally on launch day for everything that we do, so that if there is some interoperability that you want that's not provided out of the box, it's easy to build that sort of thing.
Hello. Over here.
Oh, there you go.
I got a mic, thanks.
Sweet. You win.
You've talked about richer message components. Any update in terms of that related to threads? Like being able to share photos and like
Paul,
Thread
you wanna take that
2.0?
Yeah. We want people to be able to share photos in threads, and we're working on it. It's probably one of the most glaring omissions in threads right now, and it's something that we're actively working on.
Soon.
Soon, depending on what your definition of soon is.
We got another one on this side of the room.
Okay.
So I was really interested in the search improvements that you mentioned. But one of the issues we get with those questions or iterations we have to do ourselves is search can be pretty difficult to do with outside kind of, I guess you could call it silos of information. So the search integrations you guys are talking about are probably documents and files that are inside of Slack. Is there any plan or strategy for dealing with organizations that have black holes of SharePoint or something like that?
That is a common point of discussion that we get in these
Yes.
meetings. I would say, so in the short to medium term, I think the approach here is on the file side, as you said, integrate with as many different kind of third-party providers as possible so we can crawl those contents of those files and treat them as like kind of first-class objects. So we do that already with Google. We'll be doing that with a number of other providers, including obviously anything uploaded directly. Then the medium-term answer is integrations that people build that feed data into Slack, where it becomes this kind of central repository. All of that is structured data that's searchable as well. So we'll be surfacing that in a kind of, I would say, kind of more first-class way as well. So thinking of those as their own modules. So if you search for Nike, eventually you'll probably see a module from Salesforce and a module from Zendesk and whatever other apps that you use, kind of grouping that content in interesting ways. Then I think really over time, there's kind of questions of how do we pull in data that's not even getting pushed to Slack in the first place? There's a whole graveyard of companies who have built federated kind of search products in the past. There's nothing to announce yet, but it's something that's definitely on our mind because that is always going to be the case. Not everything will flow through Slack. So how do we kind of make those troves of information that otherwise are kind of siloed accessible is definitely something that we're thinking about. So
I'll add a little bit to that, which is I think the core problem is about linking content from lots of different places. And the platform definitely, it's one of the core things that we want to make it really obvious where stuff lives. And so working with search is definitely one way to sort of present a cache layer to a lot of other content. But I think it's also important to think about how do you link a channel to a folder somewhere else? Or how do you link a particular kind of team or process to all the different things that are connected to that, and making it really easy for, if something happens over in Salesforce, make it really easy for that to trickle down to other places and other products. So we're thinking about it from a couple different angles. Search is one of them, but linking apps and having that sort of connection with identity and sort of context is really also going to help us a lot there. We hope.
Our next question is back here.
One of our biggest pain points at Comcast where we use Grid is user management. And I'm wondering if we're going to see anything in the near future, both on the ADFS identity provider front, because, for example, I have to manually process employee terminations every day. And then also things for guests, like setting org-wide time limits and similar, being able to apply policy to guest accounts rather than current Wild West situation.
Good one for Ilan.
Yeah. I'll take this, guys. So
have fun.
So yes to both. So right now, as I'm sure you know, we integrate with IDPs. We have had many times the requirement to integrate directly with ADFS through some sort of on-premise gateway, and we are definitely considering something like that. On a more immediate part of the roadmap is the second question around guest management. We are actively designing already guest management at the org level where you can set org-wide expiration, and even beyond that, a workflow. So every user can request a guest to join, but then can trigger a workflow for an admin to approve that.
It's really easy problem to solve.
We had a question in the front row.
How does Slack address GDPR requirements?
I can take that as well. The question is, how does Slack address GDPR requirements? The answer is carefully. So we are working, we've been working actually for the last probably 7 or 8 months since the beginning of the year with our legal team and outside counsel and working on features from core to enterprise. So we're ready in May to be certified there. But those are our plans, are to definitely be compliant with GDPR.
We have 1 minute left, so maybe 2 more questions.
Hi. So you mentioned that you're localizing Japanese right now, which is great. I represent a pretty big Japanese gaming company. And to take it one step further, one of my big questions is connecting between the U.S. offices, European offices, and Japan. Is there some thought on the roadmap for auto-translation?
Sorry, I was looking for you in the audience. We don't have anything on our immediate roadmap about automatic translation, but my understanding of what you could do with our APIs is that it wouldn't be too difficult to wire something like that together if you had a partner that you were working with to provide that. I don't know if Noah or Buster, you had anything more to add about that?
No, I mean, I think we're hopeful that there are solutions that include the platform around that stuff. So just being able to pass around like what language are people do they prefer in a given channel or a given workspace, so that apps can then do interesting things with that. I think we are eagerly sort of anticipating what we learn from the next 6 months or so as people start to experiment with this stuff.
Yeah, I think two things worth noting. First of all, what we announced today in terms of localization is the first time that we've done anything like this, other than the localization that we've done of our support materials over the last few months of the year. So we're trying to save space on the roadmap for the team that's working on that to be able to address the needs that customers have as we learn more about how they're experiencing it. The other thing that I think is important to keep in mind as you hear about us, both like on the SLI side that Noah talked about, as well as core product and really everything we do, is customer data and like the sanctity and security of that data is one of the most important things that we think about with everything we do. And something like machine translation, which it's obvious to us what the value of that is, and there are certain shortcuts we could take to accomplish it, like by partnering. We would want to make sure that before we did anything like that, that we're not taking customer data and putting it in the hands of a partner that the customer hasn't already signed off on. So it's going to be the case that for things like this, we're going to be very careful about how we approach them to make sure that we're being respectful of the volume of really important private information that's flowing through our network.
One last question?
Okay, one last question over here.
Hey, thank you. So earlier you guys mentioned a little bit about a revamped app security model. Would that include the option to be able to restrict what fields in your profile data custom applications can read or access?
Yes, eventually, but not in the first wave of the API stuff that we're doing. But right now we're thinking of really quickly just channels as the main gating mechanism for giving an app access to a team. And the next layer on top of that will be the user as well. But we're also thinking about ways for apps to have specific custom fields that are attached to people on the team that only they can sort of write to and read from. And that's probably where this will head in the future.
One thing to keep in mind also with the shared channels announcement today is we only send a limited version of the profile that you have within your team to the other companies. So when they're looking at you, they only see the basics that are necessary in order to kind of identify who you are. So there are ways like that that we're already starting to think about different perspectives through which you might see a person in an organization.
Thank you.
Cool. I think we are out of time, but we're all going to be around today and tomorrow, so definitely come up and say hi to us and ask us additional follow-up questions. We have a request for you to fill out the session survey in the Frontiers mobile app, which I'm sure you've all downloaded. If you haven't, go do it, and give it a 5-star rating in the App Store. And lastly, I think it's lunchtime, so to go to lunch, go that way, go down that way, and I hope you enjoyed the session and look forward to hearing from you again. So, thanks.